Hi, Bible friends. Hey, I'm gonna do a review video here. I'm gonna whip through these before I do math chat later on. Today I'm gonna be eating lunch while you're watching, so don't be offended. I got a couple things that are still available to you. I'm gonna update them every now and then, and one here is our outline practice. I encourage you to print that off and to continue to work on that. By the time it comes to the test, you're gonna have to know 12 sets of outlines. So it's very important that you practice a couple times a week. There's going to be a quiz when we get kind of near the halfway point, so you want to make sure that you're brushing up on not only this, but the verses and watching my review video. So we got Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah. Now we've added Jonah. How about we just run through these right now, since we're here. Hosea, part 1, the adulteress and faithful husband, chapters 1 through, and then the adulteress and faithful, chapters 4 through 14. 14? That's right, because our key verse is there. We'll get to that next. Joel, the devastation of the land by, and then the devastation of the land by, and then the coming day of the Lord. Amos, let's call them up. 8, 3, 5, 5. 8 judgments, 3 sermons, 5 visions, 5 promises. And Obadiah, who's judged? Edom. Who's restored? Judah. Jonah, first commission, second commission, and then what are the chapter divisions here? I remember it's got an even structure to it, so it's split right down the middle and everything kind of parallels and mirrors everything else. So 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. First commission of Jonah, the second commission of Jonah. Also got for you some matching with key verses. Okay, so look at the first one. So which book does that come from that we studied thus far? I will pour out my spirit on all mankind. I will pour out my spirit in those days. Remember, that's what happened at Pentecost? And he says that this is to fulfill what was spoken of by the prophet Joel. Okay, B, should be obvious. Should I not have compassion on Nineveh? Come on, Jonah. Letter C, return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you've stumbled because of your iniquity. Which book is that? Hosea. The house of Jacob will be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, but the house of Esau will be as stubble. Who's the house of Esau? That's Edom, and they're bad, and so we've got Obed, Edom, and that's the book of Obadiah. And then we got this one, which most of you have called me up and said to me. Amos replied to Amaziah, hey, what's up? Hopefully you say Amos for this one. So anyway, you can match them up on your own time, but that's available to you and your docs, giving you sharing permission to those things. Since I'm only going to go over the questions, I just got to have this. Well, actually, I don't even need this, do I? I don't want you just depending on that reading, so I'm going to get rid of that. And we're going to switch over to all of me for all of you. That's clever, wasn't it? You get Mrs. Reese to come up, do stuff. All right, rapid fire. Here we go. Minor prophets. How many of them are there? And are they less important? Is there any discernible pattern in the listing in our Old Testaments? And who's the first guy? How do you spell his name? Hosea. And he's a prophet in the north or the south. And is that Israel or is that Judah? And what is the capital of the northern tribes of Israel? And when does that city fall? And who do they fall to? Who's the king in the north when Hosea is preaching? And who are kings in the south? And is that South Israel or Judah? And what's the capital in the south? And when does it fall? And who does it fall to? Who else is preaching at the same time as Hosea? I am was preaching, Isaiah and Micah. And our key verse, Hosea 14:1. Can you still say it? Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. That's right. And this is a picture of his marriage with who? And what is she? God tells him to marry her anyway. And how many kids do they have together? And then what does she do? And then what does he do? And then what do I do? And what does he tell her? We already did the outline, so I'm going to skip over that. Who's the author? And who's his daddy? And when did he write this? And what does Hosea's name mean? And what's the theme of the book of Hosea? And this book illustrates God's faithful love. What's the purpose of Isaiah or Hosea? See Hosea. To warn the nation of coming judgment due to their idolatry. Second book, Joel. How do you spell Joel? Joel. Joel. One of the earliest what type of prophets? And we got some bad stuff in the outline. We got locusts, invaders. We got fire. We've got drought. We got the coming day of the Lord. It's written to the north or to the south. And it's the big idea here is and that day is going to be awful. Either it'll be full of awe because we're glorying in our Redeemer, or it'll be awful because his judgment is coming and we're not protected from it. Joel's name means who's God? Yahweh. The date of writing is traditionally set in the year 800 and what? During the childhood reign of who? Under the tutelage of priest what? I mean, not priest what? You know what I mean. And the theme is for punishment or for blessing. What's the purpose? See Hosea. That's right. Key feature of the book is that this is the main text preached on by the apostle who? On the day of what? In Acts chapter, Amos comes next. YouTube, you caught me. I got some copyright infringement on playing that Money, Money, Money song. I got warned. No money for me for that one. Amos is about, yep. And our key verse is Amos is telling the guy what his day job is. What's his day job? And Joy sent you a picture of what a sycamore fig looks like. Definitely a different kind of tree, huh? So not only is he a fig farmer, but also he is a shepherd, and he has a prophecy that is a vision or a series of visions, and it's concerning the northern tribes of and their king and their place of worship, which is the city of Bethel. And what's going on there? The sin of Jeroboam, which includes idolatry, bad priests, the whole business there. And who's the king up there now that he's going to preach to? And this is written 2 years before or after what natural disaster? Before. 2 years before the earthquake. Amos's name means not Santa Claus, burden bearer. And who does he condemn? Two parts of society. He condemns the guys that have all the money, and and then how are they influencing the courts? Alrighty, so we already called him up, 8355, 8 judgments, 3 sermons, 5 visions, and 5 promises. But he's not a professional prophet, year 755. Apostasy brings judgment, folks. Apostasy brings judgment. Last thing, let's talk about those 5 visions. First 2 we also saw in the book of Joel. So you want to know what they are? At least several of these. So you got coming judgment in the form of locust and fire. And then what's that funny thing, that weight on a string that tells me whether things are straight? Plumb line. He's got a bowl of what? Summer fruit, ripe for the picking. And he's got some stricken doorposts. They are crooked, unstable, and useless. The promises are about David, restoration, planting, harvesting, bountifulness. Last book, Jonah. Okay. Our key verse is the last verse of that book, And it's like, hey, Jonah, don't you have any compassion? You had compassion on a plant, and you had compassion on little else. You don't have compassion on innocent children and on animals, and there are lots of them, right? Shame on you, Jonah. And it ends that way. We don't get his response. We don't know if he repented of his hardness or what. We know that it seems like God is so done with Israel that he's willing to go to the Ninevites. They dripped. I was talking with Mr. McAndrews about those Ninevites, the Assyrians, and how awful they were. They basically kill just about everybody in the city, leave one survivor, send them to the next city with a message and said, tell them what happened to everybody, and tell them we'll be there in 48 hours. Just awful, awful stuff. So, nevertheless, God is merciful and gracious and compassionate, and he sends Jonah to this nation. God cares about the nations. Israel was to be a light to the nations, and they failed. Nineveh is the capital of the what empire? And remember, it's Nineveh, not Nineveh. And we got our two parts of the outlines evenly structured. You got his first commission and his second commission. So we have this literary balance in that book. First, he disobeys God's call, and in chapter 3, he obeys God's call. In the first part, he's judged and tossed over the side of the boat. In the second one, Nineveh's judgment is averted. First part, he prays from the belly of the great fish. In the third part, he prays for a plant. Oh my goodness. In the first part, he's delivered. In the second part, he is rebuked. Really, Nineveh is delivered from their horrible place. They were on the verge of death, dying, and destruction. Author, is he a real guy? Really historical figure? Or is he just a myth? Oh no, Jonah's a real dude. Mentioned as well in 2 Kings. And Jesus believed that Jonah was a real person because he said, look,
it's about time. Why don't you go outside or something? Nerd.
See why you guys get so yeah, Jesus mentions him in Matthew 12 and in Luke 11, and he points to that and says this is why what Jesus has been saying about going to Jerusalem and dying, which he starts saying in Matthew chapter 12, I think. But that's the sign that the people of his day would receive. In Nineveh's day, they received a guy basically back from the dead. He's crying out, he says, from the depths of Sheol, in the belly of that animal. The waves had encompassed him, and he was all wrapped up in seaweed when God saved him out of the deep. And it's when he comes back, he smells horrible. He smells like death. His skin's probably all blanched and white, and he has this message of 40 days and Nineveh will be overturned. So when Jesus is risen from the dead, that is the sign. That is the sign that Israel would be overturned. So that's the only sign that they would get, would be the sign of Jonah. It's a real one. Jonah's name is ironic. It means, which is in general a messenger of. And there were probably some weird things that happened in Assyria at that point to get them ready. There was 2 plagues, and then there was a solar eclipse. And then he shows up and he says, the end of the world. And they're like, yeah. So we got four themes. First, God graciously extends his what to the who. Secondly, God is sovereign over life, elements, and circumstances. What all does God appoint in this book? He appoints a storm, he appoints a fish, he appoints a plant, and he appoints a worm. He's in charge. Thirdly, this challenges Israel's perspective on nationalistic pride, but also that God has pretty much said he's had enough of them and he's going to someone else. They do not have any interest in being a light to the nations, and so God sends Jonah, the most reluctant missionary ever, to be a light to the nations. They're about as bad, he's about as bad as the Pharisees were in Jesus' day, which they would cross oceans to make a disciple that just is someone who will follow their traditions rather than will follow the commandments of the Lord. Picture and type of Christ is a big deal. Matthew 12:39-41. Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites, a messenger back from the dead. And our literary device for the book is irony. Irony. I won't go. Okay, God, I will go. Now I'm here. I wish I'd never come. What a punk. All right, there's your review for the day. 15 minutes and 38 seconds of awesomeness. I'll see you later.